Good morning. Welcome to the San Mateo County Planning Commission meeting of August 25, 2021. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May we have roll call, please?
Commissioner Gupta. Commissioner Gupta.
Excuse me, I was muted. Aye.
Commissioner Hansen.
Here.
Commissioner Ramirez.
Here.
Chair Ketchum.
Here.
Commissioner Santa Cruz is absent and staff is represented by Monowitz and Montes.
Next on the agenda is oral communications. This is an opportunity for members of the public to speak on any subject that is not on today's agenda. Speakers will be limited to 5 minutes. First, staff will explain how the public comment process works for our remote meeting.
Thank you, Chair. For those attending the meeting on the Zoom video conference, we will use the raised hand feature in order to organize any public comments. During the general public comment period and for each item on the regular agenda, I will ask those members of the public who wish to comment to click the raised hand feature to raise your hand to speak on that agenda item. For those joining by phone, please press *9 to indicate your desire to speak. Please note that members of the public must wait for my prompt in connection with each agenda item before using the raised hand function. For example, you cannot raise your hand at the beginning of the meeting for an item that is later in the meeting. When you hear your name called, I will prompt you to unmute your account and inform you that you may begin speaking, and you will have 5 minutes. And right now, I do see one hand raised. I see Ron Snow. So let me just, okay, 1 second, let me just find my timer. Okay, Ron Snow, please unmute your account and begin speaking.
Yes, good morning, and thank you for letting me make a brief statement. We've, in our neighborhood here in West Menlo Park, have had almost a continual history of developers taking down virtually all the greenery in any lot that they're developing. And this has become quite a big problem throughout the area, I think. And you guys, as you all know, there were some developers that actually went out and took down trees, even when there was an appeal against the tree removal permits. One of the problems that the community has had is that we don't always get notified of when trees are going to be cut. The notification requirement for cutting trees is so limited to just a few hundred feet from where the tree is, even though the canopy and the visual aspects of that tree are often an integral part of the entire neighborhood, consisting of scores or hundreds of homes. So I would urge you to consider putting in an emergency provision to widen the notification requirements. And part of that goes with when the community does respond, it's important that planning has the resources and the direction to address those issues. We often wait months before getting a response from planning on some of the issues that are critical from a time perspective. An example is we have several properties where not only were all the trees removed from the property, or a majority of the trees removed from the property, but the border trees on the neighboring properties were damaged or appeared to be damaged as a result of the construction. And we've, Steve, I think, knows of 2 examples, one at 360 Leland and one at 2050 Santa Cruz Avenue in West Menlo, where we've asked, where he had an arborist actually go out, or planning had an arborist actually go out and assess those trees. Our neighborhood, many in our neighborhood have requested that report from the arborist to understand what was the result of the arborist evaluation of those trees. And we have yet to receive that report, even though we asked for those reports back in February and March. So anyway, so just to sum up, I would like to see that you put in some kind of provision or consider it on your in your commission to widen the area of notification for tree removals. These are for heritage and significant trees. And urge planning to have a better program on responding to requests from the public, especially when an arborist report is as easy as sending through email to those people that are requesting it. Thank you.
I see no further requests to speak.
Yeah, sorry, I was on mute. That's right.
If there are no objections, we will close oral communications and move on to the consent agenda, which includes one item, the minutes of August 11, 2021.
Chair,
Yes,
would it be possible for Steve to comment on this? I know we as a commission cannot act on anything because it's not been agendized, but I would like to hear some comments from Steve if possible.
I'd be
Yes.
happy with permission of the chair. So, yeah, the two items that Mr. Snow raised, expanding the notification range, I have no objection to that proposal. I don't think it qualifies for an emergency action. There's very limited range of actions that we can take under emergency. So I'd be in favor of considering that as part of the tree regulation updates that will be forthcoming to the commission. With regard to this report that's been requested, I sent him my apologies if there's been a miscommunication here. When the county arborist goes out to assess, an alleged violation, the county arborist doesn't produce an arborist report. I communicate with the arborist, as does our staff, on the results of his site investigations, and that might be simply a verbal conversation. So I think the records Mr. Snow is looking for simply doesn't exist, and I apologize if that wasn't made clear to him. But I can follow up in terms of what our arborist did see on the site and what we concluded as a result of that investigation.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
yes, thank you. So anything else on the oral communications? All right, we'll close that item and move on to the consent agenda, the minutes of August 11, 2021. May I have a motion?
So moved.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Gupta,
Aye.
Commissioner Hanson,
Aye.
Commissioner Ramirez,
Aye.
Chair Ketchum.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Motion passes 4-0. Moving on now to the regular agenda, staff will introduce item number 1.
Item number 1, owner Rebecca Castengay, applicants Paul Dawson, file number PLN 2018-00489, location Hicox Road west of Skyline Boulevard, and our project planner is Kanoa Kelly.
All right, let me just share my screen really quick. All right, can everybody see my slides here? Good,
Yes.
okay. All right, good morning, commissioners. So this is item number 1 for, it's quite a few projects that we have going on. It's consideration of a resource management permit, a fence height exception, grading permit, architectural review permit, and adoption of a mitigated negative declaration pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act. All of this is to allow the construction of a new single-family residence with an attached 1,200 square foot 3-car garage. It also includes an ADU, a garage under the ADU, and a horse stable. This is at a property located east of Skyline Boulevard along Hicox Road. This also involves the removal for development of 4 trees. And as we mentioned, it is in the Skyline State Scenic Corridor. Here you go, here's the APN here. Let's just zoom in. So this is 4.79 acres east of Skyline Boulevard, off of Hicox Road there, unincorporated Woodside. And here you can see a rendering for the single family residence. You can see the pool there, the kind of wood clad building is the garage and an additional living space. And here you can see the elevations for the horse stable on the right, and then the left is the ADU with a garage and storage on the bottom. And here's just kind of a layout of the site. So you can see the new access road off Hicox. There's the single family home. And then also off Hicox, you can see the ADU, the garage, and the horse stables. And here are the trees to be removed. Of the 4 trees, only 1 is a significant tree. So there's 3 coast live oaks that are being removed under 11 inches or less. And then there's also the removal of a 30-inch bay here. Now, the applicant is also requesting a fence height exception for the increase of the fence height within the 50-foot front setback. You can see outlined in red there is the fence adjacent to Hicox Road. So it's approximately 30 feet from the road. The fence will be erected, and the maximum height will be six feet. So there will be a fence and then walls alongside of each of the entrances to kind of shield the view of the gates, the electronic gates that will be at each of the entrances off of Hicox Road. Let's get into project compliance. The project complies with all RM development standards and all zoning regulations, other than the fence height, which will be remedied with that fence height exception. It complies with all applicable ARC review design standards for development in Skyline Scenic Corridor, and complies with all of the applicable policies in the general plan, including visual quality standards, water, soil, and natural hazards. And that's detailed in the staff report. So compliance with CEQA, initial study and mitigated negative declaration was prepared for the project and circulated, and no comments were received within the public comment period. Staff has determined that the project with the recommended mitigation measures would not have a significant impact on the environment, and mitigation measures are included as conditions of approval in attachment A. So staff recommends that the Planning Commission approve the RM permit, fence height exception, grading permit, architectural review permit, and certify the mitigated negative declaration pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act by adopting the required findings and conditions of approval listed in attachment A of the staff report. So that concludes my brief presentation on the project, and I'll open it up to any questions.
Before we do that, Chair Ketchum, if I could just make sure that commissioners receive the letter from the Mid-Peninsula Open Space District and quickly address that. So the Mid-Peninsula Open Space District, which owns property very nearby the proposed development, has submitted concerns regarding the prevalence of sudden oak disease in this area, and underscoring the importance of taking whatever actions we can to try and control the spread of sudden oak disease. And the letter specifies certain procedures that should be followed when the proposed tree removals are undertaken. And it also requests specific replanting requirements. So the basic thing with the removal of the trees is you want to make sure that there's no tree materials that could spread onto other properties. So you have to carefully control all the debris, and you also need to sterilize all the equipment that's used to cut the trees after doing it. With regard to the replanting, Mid-Penn Open Space District suggests that a replacement oak be planted for each of the 4 trees to be removed, and that because the local genetic stock may have certain resistance to sudden oak disease, they'd like to see the replanted trees come from acorns harvested within the watershed to try and preserve that genetic stock that may be resistant to the sudden oak disease. And based on my read of their requests, I'm in favor of adjusting the staff recommendation and including such conditions as conditions of approval. But of course, I'd like to hear from the applicant if they have any concerns or objections to that. So thank you for considering my comments.
Thank you for that clarification. Does the applicant wish to speak?
So I do see the applicant on the attendee side. However, when I try to promote to panelist, it doesn't seem like he's transferring over. So if you can hear me, go ahead and accept the request to join panelist.
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
You are. Yes, thank you.
Can you hear me? Yes, hi, Paul Dawson here. Yeah, I have no, I agree with the open space requirements. We're not taking down a large amount of trees, like the report says. I think there's only one significant tree, which is a bay tree, which isn't very large, and the other 3 oaks are under 12 inches. So, yes, I would agree.
Do you have anything to add to the staff report before we go on to commissioner questions?
Not at this moment, no, but maybe later.
All right, thank you. So commissioner questions for staff. We'll start with Commissioner Gupta.
Thank you, Chair. My first question really is, why a 6-foot fence versus the allowed 4 feet fence there? Is there a reason behind it?
Can I speak?
Oh, go ahead,
Hello?
Paul.
Oh, okay.
I think it would be appropriate to let the applicant speak if that's okay.
The reasoning is that it's an upsloping lot from Hicox, and so it's more of a privacy issue. The house sits up a little bit on the hill, and a 4-foot fence would give me no privacy on the property. So just a couple more feet would allow decent privacy for the lot.
So my understanding is that the house will sit, or your construction will sit lower than the Skyline Boulevard or Hicox. Is that correct?
Yeah, you can't see any of the structures or any of the property from Skyline. It's completely blocked, and it's quite far down from Skyline. But there's a
Okay.
road called Hicox Road that runs along the side of the property, and my property's up a little bit on a hill from Hicox, and so a 4-foot fence, you could see everything on my property. So I was just asking for a little bit of privacy to raise the fence a couple of extra, another 24 inches, which would give me more privacy for me and my
Okay.
family.
Okay. And there's no issue in terms of traffic turning in from Hicox into your property, or more the residents of your property going out onto Hicox, anything may be blocked or may cause safety issues
By the extra height in the fence,
by the extra height of the fence, right? Is there enough room there between the fence and the Hicox Street?
yeah, I think so. I think if we would have went, even high, asked for even higher with the fence, like an 8-foot or a 10-foot fence, it would be an issue. But I think the additional 24 inches, because we are coming down from a heightened elevation, we have good access and a good view of Hicox coming down to get onto Hicox. So I don't think it's going to be an issue. It won't block anything.
Okay. Thank you for that. And my other question is that there are two entrances from Hicox to your property, which is specified as the main entrance.
The main entrance is the first entrance that you hit coming down Hicox, which takes you to the main house,
Okay.
which is the fire turnaround. And then the second entrance further down is where the ADU and the stable is.
Okay. So, so the first one has the fire safety in terms of turnarounds for the fire engines, etc. But what about the other one?
They both have fire turnaround radius. I think they're required by fire to have access there. So they both have fire turnaround radiuses.
Okay. That's great.
We didn't want to connect the structures. We're trying to, keep as much green space between the buildings as possible. So adding an additional road from the main house to the ADU would have cut through all the green space. So rather than that, we pushed the ADU down as close to Hicox as possible, and then just did a small little road into the property there. That way it allows for quite a bit of green space between the structures, and I didn't want to make the property full of road.
Okay, that's great. One of my concerns, or maybe CAL FIRE has already taken care of that or has communicated with you. When emergency call is made, would the fire people know which one to go to?
Well, I think it would be good because they have two good accesses to each structure. So, they both have independent accesses. They both have independent turnarounds. And by these new structures on Hicox, I have really good water at the site, over 30 gallons per minute. So I think it's going to allow better fire suppression for the rest of the community down there. There's only a few houses down there, but
Okay.
with the additional fire suppression tanks we're going to put down there, I think it's going to be better for the few houses that are down there. And I've already met with fire down there, and we've discussed turnarounds and bump outs, and they were more than happy with what the plan was.
Okay, thank you. I'm glad that has been taken care of. I don't have any more questions at this time.
Commissioner Hanson.
Good morning. When I took my drive through the neighborhood, I noticed the majority of the fences were 4 feet and they were open rail. A lot of them were horse fences with maybe with a hot wire attachments to them or something like of that nature. So what is this fence going to look like?
I plan to do either a redwood or cedar fence. I'm trying to keep it in the same style as the building, more of a California ranch style. So all the materials are pretty organic. My neighbor's fence directly across from me, he's actually built more of an adobe style stone fence, which is 6 feet. But you are correct, up the top where the actual horse stables are, there's transparent fences where they built their corrals for their horses. But I plan on building a wooden fence.
A wooden fence.
Yeah, either cedar or redwood that will naturally gray out with time and be consistent with the landscape.
Okay. And the only other question got answered, and I want to thank you for agreeing to the suggestions of how to handle the replanting of trees and worrying about the subnodes. So thank you, and those are my questions.
Commissioner Ramirez.
Some of my questions were already answered, but I do have one additional question. The ADU, how do you plan to use that ADU? Is that still for your family, or is that something that you're going to rent out, make available to other people other than your family?
It's actually for my mother and father who are getting on in age, and it's more of a care thing for them to come and live close by to us. When it's not being used by those by my family, then it'll probably be rented out to the public.
Okay, thank you. No additional questions. Thanks.
I have a couple of questions. For the stable, what does it mean, green roof?
Green roof is, we're trying to blend it in with the environment. So we're going to plant native grasses and wildflowers on top of the roof so that you won't be able to say, so you won't just have this, asphalt style roof,
Oh, okay. I was thinking it might be that. And I didn't see any landscape plan or irrigation and wondered if you had any future plans for that, and if you were going to have any fenced horse pasture or paddocks or anything like that.
Right now, the initial plan is to try and keep everything pretty wild, which is why we didn't submit a landscaping plan. I want to try and keep it as natural as possible. The land itself currently is quite beautiful. And we don't have any plans at this time for a corral or paddock, because our neighbors already have those, and it's kind of like a shared community down there. So for my horses, I'll probably be using 2 or 3 neighbors that I know for that amenity.
Okay, I guess that covers it for me. Did you?
Chair, may
Yes.
I ask one more question?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. One question that I have that is for our project planner is like in the staff report, it says that the neighbors within 300 feet of the property were informed. Now, in the properties of this size, 300 feet doesn't even go to the next door neighbor. Was it ever considered that we change that to a bigger area?
No, typically we just comply with the regulations that are in place. I'll have Steve chime in if he's considering that.
I think it's important to point out that the distance is measured from the actual property line, not from the project location. So 300 feet from the property line is likely to touch at least all adjacent neighbors. In terms of, whether or not we should expand 300 feet, I think that's a broader question, regulatory question that we can consider when we update our regulations. The noticing is not limited to 300 feet from the property boundaries. It can also include any interested parties. So it's not unusual that in addition to the neighbors within 300 feet, we're noticing many other folks who've either asked to receive notice of future hearings or just inquire and want to receive notice. So certainly respect the question and be happy to consider that in future regulation updates. But in the case of this project, we complied with the regulations, and I think all the interested parties have been appropriately notified.
Okay. Yeah, because 300 feet for large properties, one of the concerns I have is that, Steve, you mentioned that interested parties maybe will be notified even if they are not right the next door neighbors type, but they may not even get the first information about anything happening at a certain property, right? So only once they come to know, they will be requesting for more information. So that is my concern. Okay. And that I feel that should be revisited at some point in the regulations. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for it. One more thing I just noticed I had, again, this is for our project planner. There's a mitigation measure 13, which is mentioned in the neg deck. That should be included in our conditions of approval.
Mitigation measure 13, are you talking about the tribal cultural resources?
I didn't follow you.
Is mitigation measure 13, that's the tribal and cultural resources?
No, this is more about the timing of when, I don't remember on which page it is, but this is about, let me explain that, about from which time to which time the construction could go on.
Oh, so you're talking about the condition?
No, it's the last attachment in the report. Let me just pull that up. One second. Just give me a moment. If we go to the last attachment, that has a condition. Let me come back to that. There may be,
if you can find it.
Right. There may be some speakers, so we can go ahead with that.
Actually, I have another question while we're waiting on, I guess this is for the applicant. So there's, will there be a perimeter fence around the entire parcel or just the fence on Hicox Road?
No, there won't be a fence around the entire parcel. It will just be for Hicox Road.
Okay, my concern was permeability to wildlife, so that reassures me. Any other follow-up questions from commissioners? Commissioner Gupta, are you Have you found your,
No, I'm
I have it.
unable.
So mitigation measure 10 in the CEQA document is that no grading shall be allowed during the wet weather season. Is that what you were referring to, that mitigation measure?
I think if you go further down, there's something that says that only between certain time, like Monday through Friday, it should be certain timing when the actual work can take place.
So yeah, just the no grading shall be allowed during a wet weather season from October 1st through April 30th. Is that the one you were looking for?
Where is that one?
Mitigation 10 in the in attachment E is the CEQA document. That was the last.
That's the last attachment?
That was the last attachment. Yeah, attachment. That was the 13. There's also a noise requirement. That's mitigation measure 13. That noise sources associated with demolition shall be limited to 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. on weekdays. Is that?
Right, that's the one I'm talking about.
That's
That
the
is
one.
not there in the condition of approval.
I didn't make it to those conditions. Okay, we'll make sure that we get that in there.
Right.
Mhm.
That's the one I was looking for. Thank you, Colonel.
You're welcome.
okay, if there are no further questions for staff, does the applicant have anything additional to add at this point?
No, at this time, thanks very much for your time, and I'll just answer any questions, I guess, if there's anybody to make comment.
Okay, so now we'll have public comment on this item, and I'll turn this portion over to Ms. Lujan.
Thank you, Chair. We are now opening public comment for item number 1. If your hand is raised, your name will be called. And right now I do see Ron Snow with his hand raised. So Mr. Snow, please accept this invitation, unmute your microphone and begin speaking. Ron Snow?
All right, thank you. Yeah, the unmute button didn't come up right away, so. Thank you again for letting me address this. And actually, Commissioner Gupta addressed one of my issues, which was these properties span for hundreds and hundreds of feet, well beyond the 300 feet requirement for notification. And so it would be interesting to know exactly how many residences were notified of this. I do think that one question that should be asked is there's a line of greenery along Hicox Road in front of this property, and it would be good to keep that greenery. And it would be a question then of how much of that greenery is going to be removed. It's probably shrubbery and small trees. So that's one thing I would like the commission to address. The other aspect is that you're sort of identifying that you're providing permission to remove this tree that is significant. And one question would be, where was that notice put on the property? And to identify that a significant tree was going to be taken down. A lot of times those notices help when people are driving by, they'll see the notice and understand that they can take action or not. The other aspect is this is a scenic area, and I think Commissioner Hansen had addressed this too, which was the size of the fence seems to have some other aspects to this. I didn't see that the material, the appendices addressed the aspect of wildlife migrations and paths. This is being, over time, this has been a major impact for wildlife, for deer, fox, and everything. And so I think a 6-foot fence, I don't see how a 6-foot fence is going to change much of a view to a house that's on a hill. And a 4-foot fence, especially if it has some gaps in it for wildlife to go through, would seem to be more appropriate aesthetically, it would conform more appropriately with the surrounding region. It's unfortunate that it would be a opaque fence, like a solid fence, like being proposed. It would anyway. So I think there needs to be some provisions to maybe keep it at a 4-foot fence, but definitely keep it where wildlife can get through it. And so I think that's one of the issues that I hope you will raise. So the significant tree notice, the fence height and ability for wildlife to go through it. This line of greenery along Hicox Road, how much of that will be maintained? And the notification to the community. I just think there needs to be an aspect of letting the neighborhood, if you will, know that this is happening, and so they can weigh in on it. I do think that there should be some concern that the aesthetics of the area, the scenic area, should be considered when allowing something that is 6 feet and solid. I think 4 feet is reasonable, and there shouldn't be a provision against to allow something more than 4 feet for sure. But anyway, okay, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Thank you for your comment, Mr. Snow. I will next call on Lenny Roberts. Ms. Roberts, please accept this invitation, unmute your microphone and begin speaking.
Yes, good morning. Can you hear me, commissioners?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Good morning. I was only going to comment. I'm Lenny Roberts speaking for Green Foothills. I was only going to comment on the notice of this project. The notice in the agenda and the agenda listing state that this is west of Skyline Boulevard, and clearly it is east, and the staff report did have the right location in at least part of the staff report. I haven't really scrutinized this, but it just struck me as it was a little off-putting to try to even consider where this location is when it has in the wrong direction from Skyline. I did know where Hicox Road was. It's on the east side, but I think anybody else who might have looked for this would have a difficulty finding it. So it's just something to keep in mind. I don't think it's a fatal flaw as far as the notification of this project. But also, I want to second the other comments about wildlife friendly fencing. We have been asking for other agencies and other applicants to provide wildlife friendly fencing. A 6-foot high fence is, if it's a solid fence, is going to interrupt wildlife patterns, and it may not be, if there is no other fencing on the property, that helps, but it still is a barrier, and it would be nice to provide some better permeability for wildlife to get through this fence. And I'm also, we have a long-standing concern about the increasing size of houses in the rural area, both in the RM zone and the planned agricultural district, because the rural areas are the structures really should be, unless it's a barn or some other major structure associated with agriculture, the structure should be subordinate to the character of the area and the land. So if you have to fence to avoid people looking at the house, maybe the house ought to be a little bit less prominent as far as its size goes. Those are just my comments. I haven't really dived into this project and done the full analysis that I would do, but it's just sort of off the top of my head comments. Thank you, and look forward to your consideration.
Thank you. I don't see anybody else with their hand raised for this item, Chair.
Can I address a couple of the comments? please?
Let's close the public. Oh, okay. Well, yeah, that, I guess you're the public too. So yes, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I actually along Hicox, there is a bunch of young oak trees on my property, and I have no intention of removing any of those. There is some shrubbery. I want to keep all that as well. So I'm not intending to remove anything along Hicox Road. The fence was designed to go in front of that shrubbery. I'm open to the idea of not having a solid fence and having breaks in between the fencing for wildlife. But again, I have no intention of fencing the other three sides of the property where I see the most of the migration of deer, foxes, and other animals. But I'm open to that, of having breaks along the fence line as well. And Hicox Road, there's only 6-7 houses down the bottom where this property is. And I know everybody along that road is very aware of my plans, and they've all been noticed because it is a very small community. That's it.
To follow up on that, if this fence is not for security and it's for privacy, would you consider locations along the fence where it's raised up so that animals can go underneath? I've noticed that even deer, if that is an option, will choose to go under a fence rather than try and jump over a 6-foot. Does that sound like a solution that could work for you?
Yeah, I'm open to that. I'm also open for it to not be a continuous fence. I've seen fences where they do have breaks, like there's a 4-foot break every set amount of feet that wildlife can get through. So I'm open to that too. It doesn't have to be a solid fence all the way across the property along Hicox Road. So we could raise it up from the bottom. We could put 4 or 5 foot gaps in between. I'm open to that.
Do any other questions, commissioners have questions for the applicant at this point? Okay.
Yes, I do. Thank you for being so flexible, Mr. Dawson. But this is a question for either the planner or Steve. At what stage of the project would we come up with what kind of fence goes up there? Like
the condition should be established in conjunction with the commissioner's action. I think you could keep it somewhat broad in terms of giving the staff some discretion to communicate with, qualified biologists who have the best science behind this before we decide on particular fence design. So I think there's room to word the condition in a manner that leaves the question of the design open, just as long as we're clear on the intent is to provide, periodic breaks in and under the fence in order to allow for wildlife passage. And then I think maybe what we could do is just in the condition, ask the applicant to submit that design after a biologist has provided feedback on the best means of providing wildlife passage, something along those lines.
Okay. And this would be a next step. We are not.
Yeah, that's correct. So what's happening today is the Planning Commission is considering the discretionary approvals like the resource management permit and the fence height exception. The applicant will then need to pull relevant building permits in order to construct the project. Now, a 6-foot wooden fence wouldn't trigger the need for a building permit per se, but when they submit those building permit plans, that's when the planner will take a look at the fence design and make sure that the fence design carries out the conditions of approval enacted by the Planning Commission.
Okay. Thank you for explaining that, Steve.
Sure.
No more questions, Chair.
Okay, at this point, seeing no other members of the public wish to speak, there are no objections. Public comment on this item is now closed. Any other comments from staff on issues raised at this point?
I'm just
No,
available to answer questions.
Yeah, if you had a specific question, we can answer for you.
All right, so now we'll move on to commissioner comments and deliberation. We'll start with Commissioner Gupta.
Thank you, Chair. No, I think keeping flexibility in terms of the fence design. Other than that, the project looks good to me. I'm in support of the project. I like the willingness of Mr. Dawson, the applicant, to work with the planning and with the county. So I'll leave it at that.
Commissioner Hanson.
I too want to say I appreciate the willingness to work with his neighbors and the community. The house size, which is admittedly very large, actually is in an area that can support a house that big. It is kind of a unique situation because unless you're really on the road, you won't be able to see it or their neighbors. And I could not find a place in Skyland where I could even see it. And actually the houses that are above him, which are smaller in size, will actually look larger. I thought that was kind of an odd quirk when I actually visited the location. Since he's willing to work with the fence to make it accessible for wildlife and improve it, I'm all in favor of moving forward with this project. And it was nice to see a community I had never been into. Of course, the hard part was trying to find the street because it really says Rocky Road from Skyline and it says private road. But I found everybody really nice trespassing into the areas.
That it?
That's it.
Commissioner Ramirez.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I also like the project. I know there are concerns for the size of the house, but just like we did the last time at the last meeting where we approved a very tiny house and a very tiny lot. I think for this, the size of this house is well within the space that is sitting on, so I don't think it overwhelms the particular site. And I too kind of did a drive around, and it would be extremely difficult to actually anybody to be able to see it from the road. And I have also another little suggestion on the fence. I think rather than like creating breaks opening along the way, if you actually staggered a fence so that you move a section of the fence away from the main fence, so you can still create a gap where the wildlife can get in around it, so that you don't break necessarily the look of the privacy that he's trying to get, but it still create a space for the wildlife to get around it and have access as it has to go into the area. I know that I have personally done something like that to still create that access for the wildlife. So anyway, it's just another suggestion there for as you work, Steve. Once you go into the creating the final plans. Anyway, just another suggestion on the fence.
I too support the project with the two additions of the wildlife permeable fence and best management practices regarding Phytophthora as proposed by MidPen. So may we have a motion?
Sure, I'll make the motion here. I will move that the Plan Commission adopt the mitigated negative declaration and approve the resource management permit, grading permit, agricultural review permit, and fencing height exemption as for county file number PLN 2018-00489 by adopting, give me a second. By adopting the required findings and conditions of approval listed in attachment A.
I second with the two additional things that we want to add about wildlife friendly fencing. And the other one is taking care of the invasive or mid pens. What do you call that?
Best management practices for control. of
Best
the
management practices. And one more is the mitigation measure 13 that I mentioned. So along with those, I second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Gupta,
Aye.
Commissioner Hanson,
Aye.
Commissioner Ramirez,
Aye.
Chair Ketchum.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Motion passes 4-0. Now we move on to item number 2. Staff will introduce the item.
Item number 2, owner Z Enterprises LP, applicants Steve and Nicholas Zamay, file number PLN 2014-00410, location 551 Crystal Springs in San Mateo. Our project planner this morning is Erica Adams.
Oh gosh, just a minute. When I get the presentation up, I lose my document to read. Let's try. I'll just see a second, just share screen. But okay, there's that. I don't know how to, let's, okay. All right. Where'd you go? Oh. Too many screens. Okay. All right. Can you see the presentation?
Yes.
Yes, we
Okay.
can. If you could put it in slideshow mode, Erica.
I thought it was.
All right, if maybe it's not just appearing that way on my screen.
No, well, it's appearing that way on one screen. That's, for some reason, it's showing on both screens. Let's see if I can do it. Is it still not in slideshow mode?
No, it's not. That's okay, though. I think this is good enough. So
Let me try sharing a different way. Now?
yes. looks
Okay.
good.
All right. Okay, well, good morning. Planning commissioners, staff, and members of the public. My name is Erica Adams. I'm a planner with the Planning and Building Department and presenting findings for denial of PLN 2014-00410, which was presented to the Planning Commission on July 28th, 2021. As you recall, the project involves multiple permits, 3-lot minor subdivision, resource management permit, and grading permit. The subject parcel is in the unincorporated Highlands area of San Mateo County and is developed with a single family residence. At the hearing, I presented the project which involves minor land subdivision, creating 3 approximately 0.7 acres along Parrot Drive, shown in orange, 48-acre conservation easement over the majority of the property, shown in green, which would allow for a density credit, allow for an additional density credit, and an approximate 9-acre area of land around the existing residence, which is shown in blue, which would fully utilize the development density credit. The project also included a grading permit associated with the installation of stitch pier walls to address landslide activity on the site. At the July 28th hearing, the Planning Commission listened to staff, the applicant, the applicant's expert, and many community members. The comments were wide-ranging, but a few factors were major themes. These generally related to public safety. In preparing findings, I re-listened to the deliberation of the Planning Commission. The commission reiterated public safety concerns. The first area was landslide activity on the site, and the second was fire danger. The denial findings focus on those 2 areas of the project. Based on the Planning Commission's public discussions at the hearing, findings of denial of the subdivision regulations were prepared. The commission's consensus was that due to the public safety concerns, the project did not comply with county policies due to hazards on the property. The commission did not find that fire hazards could be mitigated, therefore directed the findings of denial be prepared for consideration by the commission. The findings that were developed are: 1, that the site is not physically suitable for the proposed type of development due to landslide activity on the parcel in violation of subdivision regulations section 7013 3B3. That the site is not physically suitable for the proposed density of development due to landslide activity on the parcel in violation of subdivision regulations section 713B4, and that the subdivision is on land located in a state responsibility area or very high severity zone, as both defined in section 5117 of the California Government Code, and that the design and location of each lot in the subdivision, each lot, where did I lost my place? That each lot in the subdivision and the subdivision as a whole are not consistent with the applicable records adopted by the State Board of Forestry and Fire Protection pursuant to sections 4290 and 4291 of the Public Resources Code. Due to the fact that the proposed minor subdivision would be inconsistent with the protection responsibilities found in section 4291A1A, by allowing lot configurations and pattern of private ownership, private ownership of land that renders it impossible to hold future owners accountable for maintaining fuel loads such as a wildfire burning under average weather conditions would be unlikely to ignite a structure, and 2, allowing the installation of buildings or structures incapable of meeting regulations of defensible space, thereby making the area less safe from possible wildfires. So the findings were presented in the report, and then there was also the California Code for high fire responsibility that's associated with that last condition. And we just recommend that you adopt those denial findings and deny the subdivision. And if you have any questions, I can answer those.
Thank you. Do commissioners have questions for staff? We'll start with Commissioner Gupta.
No, I don't have any questions at this time. Thank you.
Commissioner Hanson.
Yeah, the list for denial, I thought was rather limited because, I cited 7 things, the underground water, the wetlands, the failed sewer line, the steepness of the slope, the landslides, the old landfill, and the fire hazards. And when on top of all of that, we're creating 3 parcels out of almost 50 acres that all 3 will need variances to move forward with a development. And if we can't come up with 3 parcels that don't need variances, that is a problem in itself. So I felt it was kind of limited, and I'm worried that it looks like if we just get someone that said it was just a fire hazard, it is not a problem to build on this, and I don't see it that way. And I just like to have someone and staff comment on that.
Well, I'll comment first, and then probably Steve wants to comment. I did re-listen to the discussion that the commission had. There was not, as far as being uniform on concerns, these were the items that were uniform. And can I clarify that to develop on these properties, there would not be any variances required. The Subdivision Act doesn't really allow us to create parcels that don't meet the standards for development. So
yeah, Erica, thanks for that.
Okay.
I understand Commissioner Hansen's concern to be that the future development would be unable to be accommodated on these parcels without, for example, setbacks, front setback requirements and so forth. So I understand that concern. I think it's a little bit premature to conclude that it would not be possible to build these sites without a variance. I mean, I think that's subject to an analysis that hasn't yet been performed. So I wouldn't recommend including that as a finding of denial. However, should the commission decide that a majority of the commissioners feel that there are additional reasons why this project should be denied, now is an opportunity to identify those, and we would capture that in the record and expand on the findings we've drafted.
Thank you. I got no other questions, and then I just didn't want to think it was easily mitigatable.
Commissioner Ramirez.
Thank you. Yeah, I understand what Mr. Hansen is saying, but I think what you have presented to us today pretty much covers, I think, the more solid cases that we made to deny this application. So if, I would say that I would support what we have before us at this time. Yeah, that's my comment.
This is becoming sort of a blend of questions and comments, but I guess my particular concern, well, okay, the staff report seems to present the previous meeting as that the commission was swayed by the neighbors, and there was no mention of the Urban Forestry Associates report, which I found the report particularly convincing that the proposed subdivided lots were unsuitable for development due to the exposure of fire, and yet that doesn't seem to, without highlighting that, it seems to weaken the case. And I also don't understand why RM District Section 6324.6 isn't included here, that no land shall be developed which is held unsuitable by the Planning Commission for its proposed use for reason of exposure to fire, ... Is there a reason why this was not included?
Well, so I'll respond to the first issue, which, gosh, if you remind me, it was the Oh, reference to the report prepared by the forestry professionals.
Yes.
And I think they would be easy to incorporate a reference to that in the findings we've developed. So I think we could stick a quick reference in there if that's the desire of the commission. And on that note, I did want the commissioners and those participating from the public to know that I think in the letter from the Highlands Community Association, there was some concern that that letter would not be entered into the record. And I wanted to assure the commissioners and the public that yes, that all the correspondence that we've received to date will be made part of the administrative record. And certainly that letter is one of those pieces. Getting to your second question about whether or not the section of the resource management regulations should be included in the findings for denial. I think that in this case, what we have is a subdivision application that the commission has determined does not comply with various regulations. The section of the RM district regulations that Chair Ketchum is referencing basically would declare a site unsuitable for development, which I think is different than the action that we had anticipated occurring today, which was a denial of a subdivision application, not a declaration that the site is not developable. And so for that reason, we did not include that resource management section.
So you're saying that section doesn't apply to subdivisions, only to
Well, no, it does. And I would say if the commission wants to reference that section, it should be specific to this, the design of this subdivision, as opposed to a declaration that the site is unsuitable for development.
I guess that's what I thought it was, because the subdivision puts the 3 parcels in the location which is unsuitable, whereas a different subdivision could put the parcels in a more suitable location.
Yes, I think findings structured like that would be acceptable.
Okay, that's all from me. Any other questions for staff at this point? All right, does the applicant wish to speak? Is the applicant in attendance?
Chair, I don't see the applicant on the.
I will note that the applicant did submit a letter to the record.
Yes.
And so I'd like to
Yes.
confirm that commissioners have received it. I think that letter accurately reflects their perspective on the matter.
Okay, so now we'll have public comment on this item, and I'll turn this over to Ms. Lujan.
Thank you. We're now opening public comment for item number 2. If your hand is raised, your name will be called. And right now I do see 2 hands raised, 3. So let's go ahead and call Ms. Lenny Roberts first. Ms. Roberts, please accept this invitation, unmute your microphone and begin speaking.
Good morning, commissioners. This is Lenny Roberts again, speaking for Green Foothills. I sent a letter to you yesterday, and I know you received it. I just wanted to reiterate a couple of points in the letter. Thank you very much for listening to the many voices of the public, which included many people besides what the staff cited in the staff report as members of the Highlands community. Green Foothills spoke, we weren't mentioned, and we do represent a large number of members throughout San Mateo County and Santa Clara counties. We have over 1,000 family members, plus a larger list of people that we communicate with. And you also received over 100 emails and letters from concerned citizens, most of whom were almost all of them were not from the Highlands community. So, and then I appreciate your bringing up the letter from fire ecologist and urban forester Ray Moritz, who we asked to review the project. And I did submit his slightly corrected letter, which had some errors in the first version. And I want to reiterate that he also was looking at the 4-parcel subdivision. So his comments about 4 parcels suitability really should be taken with the understanding that there are only 3 proposed residential parcels that have been under consideration for this project. We support the proposed findings for denial, but we do believe that it would be important to include the reference to the 3 parcels that are in under the RM zoning regulations that Commissioner Ketchum cited. We would strongly support your adding another finding under the RM zoning regulations that relates to the 3 proposed parcels in location on this project that is unsuitable. We do believe there are other potentially suitable sites on this property. So I think it would be important to include that specific finding about the location of these particular 3 parcels. Thank you for consideration, and appreciate all your hard work on this and staff's work as well.
Thank you, Ms. Roberts. I'll next call on Leslie Nicholas. Please accept this invitation, unmute your mic and begin speaking.
Hello, Honorable Planning Commissioners. My name is Leisha Nicholas. I'm the president of the San Mateo Highlands Community Association. My address is 1896 Lexington Avenue. I really want to thank you, the Planning Commissioners, for listening to the community comments at the July 28th meeting and again today. We support the Commissioners' unanimous decision of July 28th to deny the subdivision project. We support adoption of the findings of denial in the staff report, which states, quote, "The Commission's consensus was that due to the public safety concerns, the project did not comply with the county policies in the general plan and resource management zoning district due to hazards on the property." As we just heard from Lenny Roberts of Green Foothills, we also support adding in the RM zoning regulations that it's not complying with. Since this subdivision proposal also includes the request for the resource management permit, we do feel it's important to reinforce that the project does not comply with the RM zoning 6324.6F, which does not allow development on land that is susceptible to landslides, fire, inadequate sewage disposal capabilities, and other features harmful to health, safety, and welfare of future residents or other property owners of the community or the community at large. And we support Commissioner Ketchum and Commissioner Hanson asking you to possibly add more to these findings of denial so that that goes on to the record. At the July 28th hearing, the Honorable Commissioner Santa Cruz cited as reasons for denial this very RM zoning regulation 6324.6F as quoted by Lenny Roberts and 6326 criteria 3 as quoted by planner Erica Adams. So we feel that those reasons and comments should be included in the record. As well, we'd like to remind the county that it's inaccurate and a great disservice to exclude from the record the county-wide outpouring of comments against this project. Of note, the comments of Lenny Roberts of Green Foothills, the comments of Ray Moritz, the fire safety expert, as well as over 100 letters and verbal comments from the concerned San Mateo County residents. These expert comments and larger countywide concerns should be in the record. As the report states that members of the Highlands community spoke against the project when really this was a much wider community speaking out. So we appreciate and echo the Planning Commissioner's comments and concerns of July 28th regarding the fire and landslide hazards, steep slopes, and inadequate sewage disposal capabilities. There's not a reason to endanger residents by subdividing this extremely steep slope with its fire and landslide hazards. When asked by a commissioner if it's correct that the whole area is subject to landslides, the county planner responded with a softening of, yes, there will be things sliding down. But though there's no softening, the danger in the fact that the proposed subdivision parcel is within the same USGS mapped landslide as the Paul Hemus Road landslide of 1998. Neighbors remember the Paul Hemus Road landslide and the $25 million taxpayer repair, which is a reminder of the gravity and importance of decisions such as denying this application. We really applaud the planning commissioner for addressing the fire risk and landslide dangers to our residents. And we thank you again for listening to the concerns, and we urge you to accept the findings of denial today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll next call on Shlomit Holtzman. Please accept this invitation, unmute your microphone and begin speaking.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Good morning. I live on Pearl Drive, across from the proposed development. I support the finding for denial of the proposed development. And I agree that the site itself is unsuitable for development, and maybe something should be written or mentioned like at that. At the July hearing, I presented the extent and magnitude of landslides in the immediate vicinity of the proposed site, including all houses across the road and on the development area itself. I'd like to add just one more thing. A quote from usgs.gov. The deadliest individual landslides in the US were in places where there had previously been a landslide. I thank the Commission for listening for the public and their role in keeping us safe.
Hi, is that the end of your comment?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next I will call on Tanya Leong. Please accept this invitation, unmute your microphone and begin speaking.
Yes, my name is Tanya Liang. I live on 1127 Para Drive. I want to thank you again to all the commissioners for listening to all the public comments, and let Ms. Lenny Roberts and Greenfoot Hills comments, and the Ray Mort's fire experts comment. I agree with the other public comments that and commissioners that we should add, or I hope you guys can add, the RM zoning section 6324.6 hazards to the public safety criteria that is not in compliance for this subdivision. And in addition, I want to talk about the utilities, the 6324.3 RM zoning. The utilities, the sewer is also part of the non-compliance. So thank you again, and I support the denials, but hope that you guys can add these RM zoning requirements or part of the denial. Thank you.
Thanks for your comment. And then I have one more hand raised for Mr. Gary Trott, and just give me a second while pull up his presentation. He has a slideshow he'd want to share.
Janet, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Give me a second while I put up your presentation.
Sure. My name is Gary Trott. I live at 1215 Pear Drive, across from the parcel that's being developed. And I would like to add my support for the denial, and well as a couple of summary points as soon as Janet gets it up there.
Sure. Give me a second. You're going to have 5 minutes to speak, and I'm going to run the timer on my end since we can't share. We can't share at the same time.
Correct. Correct.
Okay, can you see that now?
Yes. So that's me.
Go ahead.
And a quick summary of what I shared last time is that there is underground water and landslide potential that was not very well addressed in the subdivision documents. Those forces were not evaluated outside the subdivision boundaries. The consequences, we know from the Fema slide, can be quite severe. It costs the taxpayers more than $20 million, and the neighbors decline to accept that level of risk. Next slide, please. Next slide, Janet.
There you go.
There you go. Thank you very much. So, I was looking through the subdivision codes for the San Mateo County, and I noticed section 7072.1. It says the prerequisites to the subdivision approval includes all of the chapter 20A.2 of the county zoning RM zoning regulations. We have consistently asked that those zoning, resource management zoning sections, which all relate to hazardous, risky sites impacting people and property or the environment, are subject to the subdivision codes. And so there are multiple reasons, broader reasons for denial, including geotechnical landslides and environmental impact to the wetlands to be included or should be included as part of the thought process. Thank you very much, Janet. That's all I have to say.
Okay. And let me see, and that was our last speaker, Chair.
Thank you. Seeing no additional members of the public wish to speak, if there are no objections, public comment on this item is now closed.
Chair, I do see one hand just come up at the moment. Do you want to give them the option? Can I go ahead and put them on?
Go ahead.
Okay, I see someone by the name of Admin on the line. So please accept this invitation, unmute your microphone and begin speaking, please. Hello. Can you hear us? No response. Chair, no response.
Okay, so public comment is now closed. And does staff wish to speak on any of the issues, Ray? Any other feedback at this point?
Just if the commission is interested in expanding on the findings, I think we might want to address particular findings that you may or may not want to add. So we might have certain responses. So for example, I think at least one speaker mentioned the sewer capacity issue, and I'd be reluctant to suggest the commission include that, because it's not really a matter of sewer capacity, it's the transmission line. And in fact, this project would provide mitigation of that, which would not only be beneficial to the project, but to the other users in the neighborhood. So I wouldn't recommend including that. So if there are others that the commissioners would like to include, I'd be happy to respond in terms of what staff thinks about that.
All right, so we'll move on to commissioner comments and deliberation, and we'll start with Commissioner Gupta.
Thank you, Chair. I visited this property. I looked down from Parrot down the slope, and I just do not see how anything can be built on these lots that we were proposing, or that were proposed to be included for subdivision. They just look very hazardous to me, and fire danger is definitely at its peak for that property. It has history of slides and erosion issues, and the lots are just too steep for any kind of construction or building residences there. So for those reasons, I support what is in front of us today. Thank you.
Commissioner Hanson.
Yeah, I'd like to go forward with this with the recommendation that the chair has mentioned on the resource management denial of the subdivisional lots. I believe there is an opportunity to find lots that are buildable. I just don't think this is the location. And I think Lisa's comments and how to address it gets there the best. And I would support that addition. I think that covers most of what I'm trying to do. I've been saying, as there's multiple things here, no one's convinced me that they have a solution in place, and this will get me comfortably there.
Commissioner Ramirez.
Yeah, I too support what is before us, and with some of the additions as the other people have commented on. So with that, we'll see where we take it.
So to sum up, my request that we include in the findings, the RM district section 6324.6 as it relates to the 3 building sites in the proposed subdivision. And the other point that Director Monowitz had said could be added as a reference to the report by Urban Forestry Associates, to add that in the findings. I think that would be helpful, and that would particularly the one about the RM district would satisfy me as well. So staff, any feedback on that?
No, I think I understand the commission's desire to add a finding regarding the resource management section, as well as a reference to the urban forestry study, and staff is prepared to adjust the findings accordingly.
Just one additional point of clarification. There's a difference between the record and the findings, and it's not necessary that the findings make a citation to the specific, to every specific basis that exists in the record. So it's about striking a balance, not having findings that go on too long and are not easily consumed. So staff will strike that balance to make sure that what you were persuaded by is summarized in the findings. But it's not the case that just because something's not cited in the findings that it's not in the record. It's in the record if it's in the record. And we have an extensive record in this case.
Okay, so the key point we would like to add is to include the RM district section 6324.6. Okay, all right. May we have a motion?
Okay, I don't have any of the wordage in front of me.
Would you like me to make the motion?
Could you do that?
Okay. I move the Planning Commission adopt the findings of denial for the minor subdivision resource management permit and grading permit, county file number PLN 2014-00410 as listed in attachment A of this document, with the addition of additional finding for denial of the RM district section 6324.6 as related to the 3 building sites in the proposed subdivision.
And I'll second that.
You have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Gupta,
Aye.
Commissioner Hanson,
Aye.
Commissioner Ramirez,
Aye.
Chair Ketchum.
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion passes 4-0. Moving on to item 3, staff will introduce this item.
Item number 3, owner applicants, Vida Verde Nature Education, Inc., file number PLN 2019-00429, location 3540 La Honda Road in San Gregorio. And our project planner is Angela Chavez.
Good morning, commissioners. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. So if you just give me 1 second. It's not working. Sorry. In 1 moment, please. Everybody can see that now?
Yes.
Yes.
Great, thank you. Sorry about that. Vita Verde, commissioners and staff. I'm going to start off with just introducing the project location, and then we'll get into discussing the project. So project is located at 3540 La Honda Road. The project parcel is accessed off of La Honda Road via a private road that is sort of at the top of the screen, little light here. So this private road is shared by 3 other adjacent properties. The project parcel is developed with a single family residence and several outbuildings, which you can kind of see towards the center of the parcel here. And those buildings that exist largely support the parcel's agricultural operation. As you can also see, the 23-acre parcel is largely covered by native and non-native vegetation. San Gregorio Creek runs through the parcel and kind of around in a U shape. I have some slides later to kind of show you where that sits. The surrounding parcels are made up of a mix of developed and undeveloped parcels, which consist of low density residential and agricultural development. So the applicant proposes to establish an overnight camp for low-income 4th to 6th grade students. Proposed overnight camping would accommodate up to 35 people, including 30 guests, students and chaperones, and 5 permanent staff, which are housed in the existing residence. The proposed development includes a new 2,890 square foot 2-story barn with the lower floor consisting of meeting, cooking, and eating space and restrooms. Sorry. And then the second floor, including a unit for farm labor housing. So the areas, we have kind of a busy site plan. So I thought it might be helpful to just provide you some indicators of the areas that we're talking about. So the proposed barn that I just mentioned is kind of shown in this large purple square towards the kind of middle here. The project also includes 3 400 square foot and 1 320 square foot outdoor camping structures. And those, I'm not sure if you guys have your windows open, but those are kind of on this far right corner in blue dots or blue circles. There's also a new 100 square foot detached student restroom, which is the smaller purple box here, and a new 735 square foot equipment storage building, which is just next to this barn and labeled tractor shed, and that will be that equipment storage. The project also includes minor remodel of the existing house to accommodate permanent operational and educational staff, and to modify that building to ensure that it's ADA accessible. The project also includes installation of a new septic system, improved water storage facilities, a new 200 panel ground mounted solar system, which is shown here at the top of the page in this orange block, a new fire hydrant, and new driveway turnouts to serve the development. And as I mentioned, a 2-bedroom farm labor housing unit is proposed to be located on the 2nd floor of the proposed barn. The project does not include the removal of any trees, but does include minor grading. So just to give you some idea of the proposed structural development, here are the 4 elevations of the proposed barn. And we also have the proposed agricultural storage building. So the elevations and a conceptual floor plan. In terms of the project's compliance with the applicable regulations, staff has reviewed the project for conformance with the county's general plan, local coastal program, planned agricultural district zoning regulations, and farm labor housing guidelines. As discussed in the staff report, the project was found to be compliant with the applicable standards. Staff's analysis found that there are just a significant amount of similarity in the intent and goals of the various regulations. The applicable general plan policies are outlined here. And they mainly focus, again, on vegetative, water, fish, and wildlife resources. So there are sensitive habitats present on the property, and the property also has the potential to support sensitive species. And there are mitigation measures that were included in the mitigated negative declaration and also included in the staff report that we've brought forward to address any concerns with that. In terms of like soil resources and agriculture, the project does support prime soils. So preservation of as much as possible is definitely something that we were concerned with, and given the parcel's just overall constraints, felt that they complied with those requirements. Visual quality, for the most part, the project is really heavily screened from La Honda Road, and the visibility of the significant development there is no visual impacts associated with the proposed development, as these items are shielded by the topography and existing mature vegetation. We also did referrals to and studies associated with the potential to support any historic or archaeological resources, and found that there was none. Again, those same findings are basically reiterated through the local coastal program. And then for the planned agricultural district, we again found that the project was in conformance with both the criteria for the issuance of a PAD permit as it applies to the water supply criteria and the criteria for conversion of agricultural lands. I'm going to jump back to the farm labor housing, but I just wanted to kind of give the applicant's site plan provides a lot of really great detail in that they include sort of an analysis of where things could go. And it's a great tool, but I think it can be a little bit hard to read when you're also including the proposed development. So I kind of broke up some of the information that they provided into individual maps. So in terms of the prime soils, we're seeing what is on the subject parcel sort of towards the middle, and there's a small portion kind of here towards the middle bottom. And you can see that the area that is currently developed and the areas that are proposed for development are largely sit in that area. So the development area of the subject parcel, like I mentioned, is highly constrained due to the presence of prime soils, sensitive habitats, and the flood zone. Given the site constraints, the existing developed portion of the parcel is largely located on this prime soils area. Conversion of additional prime soils is limited, as the proposed barn is basically located in the same location as the existing one, which is just about here. I think one way to kind of orient yourself, I didn't want to add too much information, but there's an existing yurt, and you can see kind of a white circle. I've used that as sort of my reference point. So you can see the barn sits in that area now. And you can see this is the Coastal Commission Appeals Jurisdiction map. I think useful just because it shows just the general area of the creek. And you can see, again, that relationship to the small little yurt there. where we know the proposed barn will be located. And then lastly, we have our FEMA flood zone. So we can also see again, it largely encumbers the parcel and leaves much of it undevelopable or difficult, or really would result in additional disturbance, all of which we hope to avoid. The project was reviewed by the county's Agricultural Advisory Committee at its November 9th, 2020 meeting. The Agricultural Advisory Committee continued the item to their December 14th meeting. Basically, they wanted to allow their members who had expressed interest to attend a site visit, and that did occur. The project was also to allow for staff to provide some clarity regarding the project's compliance with the provision of requirements regarding the provision of water. So we did provide additional documentation, and the Agricultural Advisory Committee recommended approval of the project at that December 14th, 2020 meeting. And then in terms of the farm labor housing, so kind of just going back, the proposed units comply with the guidelines as detailed in the staff report, in that the housing meets the required setbacks of the zoning district. It is self-contained and will meet the California Housing and Health Code requirements, building inspection section requirements, and environmental health division code requirements. As I mentioned, an initial study and mitigated negative declaration were prepared for the project and circulated. The comment period ran from June 23rd, 2021 and ended on July 29th, 2021. Comments were received during this period from both the California Coastal Commission and the California Water Board. These questions and comments that they had were included in the staff report, and the specific letters were included as attachment E. And mainly these comments were just focused on general compliance that we've discussed here, and some additional questions regarding water supply and storage. There was a preliminary report that was provided to us and to the Division of Drinking Water, which is a part of the California Water Board. So we supplied that document to you and to them. So based on that, it is staff's recommendation that the Planning Commission adopt the mitigated negative declaration and approve the coastal development permit, planned agricultural district permit, and farm labor housing permit with the file number PLN 2019-00429 by making the required findings and adopting the conditions of approval as were detailed in attachment A. That concludes my presentation, but I'm available for any questions you might have.
Thank you. Do commissioners have questions for staff? We'll start with Commissioner Gupta.
Thank you, Chair. My question, I know that the planners touched upon drinking water storage. I hope this is, she can answer that question, is there was a concern about drinking water being kept separate from the rest of the water for other usage. How is that handled?
So the project includes a water treatment system, which includes basically storage for fire suppression, which is separate from the 5,000 gallons that are discussed in the report for drinking water. So they are connected but not connected. So they are separate storage capacities.
Okay. And the drinking water is treated before it's stored in the
5,000 gallon tank. Yes.
5,000 gallon tank. Okay. Great. I'm looking at that. My other question really is about how is this property going to be used? But before I get to that, how is it being used right now? It's a large parcel.
So it is a large parcel, and the group currently does run an operation, but this would be solidifying overnight camping and having a limit on, the number of campers that would be allowed on site.
So they still, even without what they are proposing now to do, they are still doing some of those activities?
That is my understanding.
Okay.
And if I could jump in, Commissioner, first, I just want to take this opportunity to thank the applicant and Angela for all the hard work to get to this point today, because this is a great program on a, very constrained site, and a lot of careful thinking has gone into the way in which they lay this out. And I think that their experience, running the program so far has provided valuable information about how the program can coexist with the land in a harmonious way. So most of the commissioners have probably read about this use and the kids it serves, and so we think it's a great program and are happy to have this recommendation before you today.
Okay, so on this property, is there something else that is also done on this parcel?
I think the applicant can explain. I think they are doing farming and farming education, and that will continue, and they'll have more facilities here to kind of, allow that to occur in a expanded fashion.
Okay. Okay, yeah, I would just like to understand a little more on what they are planning to do in the future. They mentioned that 3 days and 2 night programs where kids come and camp out there and get education, kind of rural education versus coming from areas where they had never seen those kind of things. So, okay, thank you. Thank you, Steve. No questions, no more questions at this time, Chair.
Commissioner Henson.
Yeah, I got just one really basic question is, when are the students, what time of year are the students there?
So there are mainly during the school year, and then there is a shorter summertime program.
Yeah, I noticed was, no full-time staff there for students. And so let's pick the peak rain period, let's say February, March area, students could be on there.
Yes.
Okay. I did visit the site. It's a beautiful area. It's really beautiful. As you say, you can't even see it from La Honda Road. You have to go down the bench, down the hillside to the floodplain. And the barn is in the future oxbow of the floodplain. And I was just wondering, because the road is in the floodplain, and if the odds are extremely limited. We're talking once in 1,000 years, type of catastrophic things to take out that road. But that being said, that's also the road in and the road out isolates the barn. Is there any evacuation considered for getting the students out on this unplanned, unforeseen event?
I mean, not from our perspective, but I would, I guess, defer to the applicant to see if that is something that they've considered, and perhaps have a plan or program in place for that.
Yeah, this put it very well, the likelihood of happening in our lifetimes is close to zilch, but it doesn't mean zero.
Right, right.
And I don't want to be over prescriptive on anything on this, but if someone at least thinks about the road will not be accessible, what do we do? And I just like to put that in somebody's head. Other than that, I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Ramirez.
Yeah, I'm just going to say that I have no questions. I think this is a really great project. So I'll save my comments for when we're deliberating.
Does the applicant wish to speak?
Hello, good morning. I'd be happy to make a short presentation if it's
Thank you.
allowable. Yeah. Thank you for having us. My name is Sean. I'm a co-founder along with my wife, Laura Sears, who I believe is on the call here somewhere. And I'm also here this morning with Sandy. Sandy, would you like to say hello and introduce yourself?
Hi, yes, I'm Sandy Summer. I'm a planner with Vita Verde, and we're happy to be here today. Sean's going to do most of the talking, and I'll be the working the magic behind the scenes.
We're happy to have the project before you and appreciate everybody's time. We, as Angela said, we sought to address all county concerns and requirements ahead of time, and have been working on this for multiple years, I believe since 2015. But largely, the county's concerns are our concerns as well. We exist to work with kids in the outdoors, and if this land is not protected in the way that the regulations seek to protect it, then we have no program, right? We have nothing to share with the kids we serve. So we're on the same page, and we're here this morning to respectfully request your approval of this project. San Mateo County, I would argue, is one of the best places in the world, and I believe we're just so lucky to be here. So Vita Verde's mission is really to get all the citizens of San Mateo County, all the citizens, right, out on the trails and the beaches and the campgrounds, for health and education and enjoyment. I believe that the more we are all healthy, right, as a community, the more healthy we all are. So can't just be for some of us. We work with 5th grade students mainly, and from local urban areas. About 750 kids each year come to our programs, and they are students who didn't grow up maybe with as much access or privilege. And the kids we get to work with otherwise are not getting out to get to know this beautiful region. So most of the kids we work with have not been to the coast in their lives so far, and have not been to the redwoods, even though they're often living just 20 miles away. Many schools in San Mateo County, as you may well know, cannot afford the cost of attending San Mateo County Outdoor Education Program. It's an excellent program. I love it. We hire many of our staff members from that internship program over there. But that's where Vita Verde comes in. And to date, we've served over 15,000 students on these trips who otherwise wouldn't have had the chance. And instead of listening to me talk too much, I'm hoping we can just play a short video that will show the kids themselves, and we can hear from them a little bit. Sandy, we're not hearing any audio.
No?
No.
Huh. I am. Huh. Wonder why not? Is it playing now?
No,
Is it good?
there's no sound.
Wow.
think I heard something really faint.
Yeah, I wonder if it has something to do with your headphones, Sandy.
Yeah, well, I'll unplug them. I mean, force it to do it.
Andy, if you try for another minute, that'd be good. And then if not, I could try and share on my screen.
Last year, it was my birthday and
Better.
Yeah, there it was. Do you want to start it over? I really appreciate you pausing it right with a picture of my butt for this long moment here.
Vida Verde is all about breakthroughs for kids.
Sean, while she's doing that, can I ask you a quick question? Oh, never mind.
my mom allowed us to play outside, but she said this is the only time you get to go outside. It's just really dangerous to go outside. Keep your doors locked.
We're gonna go outside to the tallest trees in the world, the redwood trees. Reconnected. At its core, Vida Verde is all about breakthroughs for kids.
We try to create these situations where in the beginning they're like, no way.
Do it. I like how you help the forest.
And then at the end, they just feel like, wow, I am capable of a lot more than I thought. The program is designed so that this can be a transformational experience.
You've done it, Carlos. You've caught a chicken.
There are a lot of kids who live right here in the Bay Area, but many of them have actually never touched the Pacific Ocean.
What was so powerful about it was like my first time being like in nature. After Vida Verde, I told my mom that I wanted to be half vegetarian because fruits and vegetables give out more energy.
Understanding where food comes from and how it's connected to you on a daily basis is very empowering. Who got this? We got this. Yeah.
While we do have a focus on the science standards, the biggest things that I hope the children go back to school with are pushing themselves outside their comfort zones and seeing themselves in a way they've never seen themselves before.
Vida Verde matters because it gives kids an opportunity to shine. It's a playground where we get to help them understand their own inner beauty and their own strengths.
We see kids having experiences every week that are transformational for them. And the whole time, we're looking for ways to make the program better. And we've been building on that for years.
Last year, it was my.
All right. Thank you, Sandy, for playing that. I apologize. It was a little choppy and a little faint, but hopefully you all got a sense of some of what happens here with the kids. The Vida Verde program was founded here on the coast side and has been running for 21 years. And during this time, we've actually had to move our camp from place to place on the coast. And Commissioner Hanson, it answers your question on some level about, I believe it was your question about what's been happening here recently. And what happens is we lease another camp down the road 2 miles. It's the Optimist Volunteers for Youth, the OVY Center, and we've been having the overnight portion of our programs there. But we've actually had to move our program around 5 times during our existence. And so this is really highlighted the need for us to have our own site that we control and can make the program longer lasting instead of depending on other sites and having to move again, which is really sort of crippling for our operation as it happens. I wanted to point out that all of the money for the camp is paid for via donations and volunteer hours. We have, prominent foundations like the Packard Foundation, who's worked with us for years, and many others throughout the Bay Area, as well as thousands of individual donors. Altogether, over 1,000 donors have contributed the $6.8 million that we've raised to purchase the land and for the staff housing and building of this barn education center. And I point those things out just to say that we feel that our community really believes in this work and wants to see this project made more permanent. I hope that you all received the letters that were submitted from community members, letters of support for the project. I actually read them this morning before getting on the call because I was nervous, and we've been building towards this for such a long time, but just kind of reading the letters helped me feel calm and positive, and it's good. So I hope you got them too. Vida Verde program is really built around what we believe, much of the best of what we have here in our county, from growing and eating healthy food together, outdoor-based learning. The kids experience the wonders of the region, right, that you saw in the video, tide pools and redwoods and our beaches and creeks. And the education camp center here that Angela was presenting about, we feel that the camp is well suited to the county and the site here at Hidden Creek. Our organization at its heart is an environmental one, as you can tell. And we're focused on low impact living. And we're focused on celebrating the natural splendor of our county. And you see this picture here. This is the 3D version of the site plans that Angela was showing. And, we want it to be just like this. We want mainly what you see to be these trees and this wildness, and to hike through trails under the, along the ferns and under the buckeye trees and the coast live oaks and the redwoods. And so we value and respect the natural resources, the creek, the wildlife. I'm here on the site right now, as you can see, and it's a wonderful place. We try to cluster everything, or continue to cluster everything, around the already developed portion of the site. And also I want to point out, Angela showed the solar farm at the top of the property there. We do intend for this project to be net zero energy. And we want it to really be more than just a camp. We want it to be a model for, in the county, a model for other building projects. We believe that we can make it both beautiful and sustainable and a learning opportunity, right? The building itself not only is the bathroom and the kitchens that the kids need, but it's also a lesson where we can talk about how it's, built with reclaimed materials, and it's built to last, and, so forth and so forth. Since moving to this farm on this site, moving our farm to this site 10 years ago, we've really maximized the use of the prime ag soils. We're really happy to have those soils and trying to take advantage, and the berries taste very sweet, I can tell you, and so do the apples. I hope you all come by to visit. And as Angela mentioned, the proposed main building here, this barn, is a rebuild on the exact same footprint. And you can see it there in the center of the screen. And there's the rendering of the new building. The reason for this building is really just the infrastructure needed for the overnight camping, right? It's the bathroom and the kitchens. And it's been carefully designed and sized to fit the setting. So that's it on the presentation and the things that I wanted to say, except for, I just really want to thank each of you, each of you commissioners, and as well as Steve and Angela. All of you are stewards of the entire county, this massive area. And like I said, it's a beautiful place to be. We're so lucky to be here and be able to take the kids from these urban areas right over here to this place. And regardless of our presentation and our application today, I just appreciate all the careful, I mean, I was here for the first 2 items of today's meetings, and I see how you carefully deliberate and how much pressure and intensity can be involved in the work. So I just want to thank you for your work, keeping the county fantastic.
So let me see where are we. Oh, do commissioners have questions for the applicant? We'll start with Commissioner Gupta.
Thank you, Chair. I have to commend Mr. and Mrs. Sears for this project. I think you are right. Our county has so much to offer, and you are showcasing it to our young people. So that's really great. I just briefly want to understand from you, when you say it's a 3 days, 2 night program, what does it entail? Just more for my curiosity.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the students arrive and it's a lot about just helping them get comfortable in the space. It's a foreign area for them. And for many of them, it's their first nights away from home. And so it's a lot about just like building trust with them and helping them understand what it's going to be like and that they're going to be taken care of. We cook food together. We eat homemade pizza right when they arrive, okay, right after the rules. So that's important. And we find the bathrooms and move into our tents. But yeah, so we go hiking in Sam McDonald County Park. On the first afternoon, we take a 3 to 4 hour hike through the redwoods. And then that night after we cook dinner together in the evening, they cook a big spaghetti dinner and the students come in and make the salad themselves and we all work in the kitchen. And that night they do a night hike in the dark with no flashlights. And so that's a real boundary breaker, as we say, for the kids. There's often tears and a lot of pride. They overcome a lot. On the second day, we come here to this site. So currently, right, they're staying overnight at the OVY site, and then they show up here at the farm. And we milk goats and make goat cheese together. And then we go into the garden and weed and plant and harvest, and then bring the food back to the kitchen in order to make our meals. And we collect, I don't know how many it is. It's like 12 dozen eggs a week from our chickens and make a big egg breakfast on the second morning. In the afternoon on day 2, we go to the coast and go to the tide pools and the estuary and play in the sand and play wave tag and get our feet wet. And then we have our campfire in the evening, and I can go on and on about all the activities. It's you know, you have trouble stopping me, but the point is on some level, it's all of these surface things about science and the environment, and those are absolutely important, but also it's a program about the kids and their own development and their own building their own confidence and understanding of what they're capable of.
No, that sounds really very tempting and very educational for the kids. So how does this work out from their school schedules?
They come during school. So we have
during school.
Yeah, they come during their school week. It's typically a Tuesday through Thursday trip, and they come with their teacher. And that's one of the other benefits of the program is they come with their classroom teacher. So we've got most of the schools from the Ravenswood School District coming, and the teachers really vie for those first trips of the year because they want to kind of set their classroom culture and also refer to the trip throughout the school year as they learn about fault lines or geography of the area or even their math and literature lessons. But yes, they do come during the week with their teacher.
Great. So one more question I have is you said you've been doing it for 21 years?
Correct.
Okay. Do you have your students come back?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we have an awesome staff member who started a second program for the high school kids. So it's alumni of 2 staff members actually, and it's alumni of the 5th grade program have the opportunity to come back when they're in high school for the summer leadership project. I believe Angela mentioned it, short summer project. But yeah, they stay for a week and do a lot of the same stuff, but then more focused on team development and leadership.
Okay. So,
and we're hoping to build our staff up through that over time, right? We want those same people who come back in high school to become counselors in training and then become the actual staff members who are leading, people from the community out on the trips.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at, right? So that's great. It's a very good thing that they are doing, and all the support that you are getting from the donors, it's just incredible.
Thank you. It is a true team effort, and I appreciate your kindness and your compliments for Laura and myself, but really it's everybody. We got things started, but it's really everybody at this point. And I also wanted to mention that there's a family component that's been emerging as well. We've started doing hikes on the weekends in the open spaces of the Bay Area to invite the kids who have come on the program to show up and bring their families, their cousins, their aunts and uncles and their grandparents, and we all hike together. So that's also a wonderful thing that's happening.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Sears. I don't have any more questions at this time, Chair.
Commissioner Hanson,
No questions.
Commissioner Ramirez.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up the question that Chairman Hanson had about the contingency to evacuate the kids in the case of an extreme emergency.
Okay, is it okay if I respond to that?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So the kids are what it's all about, right? So safety is really important. Gosh, the sun's coming out, it's great. The kids are what it's all about, and their safety is paramount, right? Who cares what lessons we're teaching them if they're in physical danger? So I appreciate your question. We've lived on this site here for 10 years now, and the site, the creek is right there, and we monitor it throughout the year, and we have our own evacuation and emergency plans for different things that can happen. But we are able to kind of to pay attention and predict when the creek is in danger of flooding. And we also utilize a USGS creek monitor, a gauge that's just downstream for us, and we know when it's going to happen. In addition, I've only ever seen it flood, in the very back lower field. And specifically about evacuation, but the property goes up as it goes towards the driveway. So I believe that the egress will be safe. However, we won't have any risks if it is you know how it is in February or March, if we're getting those days and days of rain and it's really the ground's just saturated, we will cancel program before we get in that situation for that week.
If I may do a follow-up.
Yes.
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So that would be yes for rain, contingency. Now that we're also in fire danger, do you have anything for that?
Yeah, it's a great question. I believe the architect, we have an ecological architect working with us on the project who has designed everything. And I know that for the main building there, that barn is going to have the sprinklers and be built, it's going to be clad in a fire resistant skin. And I don't know if that totally addresses what we need it to address, but I think your concern is absolutely appropriate. It's on my mind all the time, right? The global warming thing is very scary. I don't know if Devin, you're there, or David, if you want to raise your hand and speak up.
Well, I can throw in, the contingency plans that Vida Verde has really apply to all kinds of hazards and disasters, fire, earthquake, all of that. And if the situation is ongoing, it's more than likely that camp would be canceled for the week. And then the staff is very well trained in the operational safety procedures. So there's sort of a whole manual that they have, a staff manual on safety, and it provides for all these sorts of contingency plans. As you know, in a situation, your heart races and you can't think clearly, you just pull out the plan and there it is, step by step. So I think that, as you probably know, we take this as seriously as you do, and so have a really good solid plan for evacuation contingencies. Sean was also beginning to talk about some of the fire safety aspects of the proposal, and I don't know if that was your question, so I'll let you speak if that was what you were asking about.
I'll just add on that we do have the 2 20-passenger shuttle buses that we use to move the kids, to the different trails and beaches in the area, and we could utilize those in the case of extreme fire danger.
Yeah, okay, thanks. That will cover my question. Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to open public comment on this item, and I'll turn this portion over to Ms. Lujan.
Thank you, Chair. We're now opening public comment for item number 3. If your hand is raised, your name will be called. I do see 2 hands raised. I will first call on Mike Williams. Mr. Williams, please accept this invitation, unmute your mic and begin speaking.
Good morning, commissioners. My name is Mike Williams. I work for the Open Space District, but I'm calling as a volunteer who works with Vita Verde. I wanted to compliment staff on an excellent report and presentation. I support the approval of the various permits and adoption of the conditions of approval. For many years, Vita Verde has worked patiently, diligently, and collaboratively with neighbors in the community on this project that addresses the many site constraints. The barn is located essentially on the footprint of the existing barn, and the project retains the garden, the chicken coops, the goat pens that are used in their agricultural and environmental education programs for 4th, 5th, and 6th graders from underserved communities in the Bay Area, such as East Palo Alto and San Mateo County. I think this is a great project, and Vita Verde is a great benefit to San Mateo County. Thank you.
Thanks for your comment. I will next call on Ms. Lenny Roberts. Ms. Roberts, please accept this invitation, unmute your microphone and begin speaking.
Good morning for the 3rd time, commissioners. I'm Lenny Roberts. I'm speaking for Green Foothills, and I sent a letter in yesterday, which I'll just briefly highlight again. I have been familiar with this site and this project for several years. I visited the program, and it's hard to even it's hard to talk about it because it's so heartwarming to see kids who have probably, many of whom have never been in a place where there isn't asphalt everywhere, coming into nature and being able to it's transformative for many of them. So also, this is a challenging site, and it's in the Planned Agricultural District, and Vita Verde has gone to extreme precautions and extreme lengths to be in compliance with the Planned Agricultural District requirements. Basically, they're using the already converted footprints of the property, where the buildings are. It was already converted from agricultural potential use. So they're not converting additional prime agricultural lands to non-agricultural purposes. And in many ways, this program furthers the agricultural purposes of the Planned Agricultural District, because there is a farming component. You saw that in the video of the children pulling out and enjoying vegetables that they probably had never even understood exactly how they're grown. So I think it's a transformative experience, as I said, for many of the students. And we recommended that you approve the coastal development permit and the planning and agricultural permit and the farm labor housing permit for this project. And we look forward to the Vita Verde being able to serve these communities totally free to every student for a long time into the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Roberts. I will next call on Zoe Christine Tucker. Please accept this invitation, unmute your microphone and begin speaking.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Good morning, everybody. Commissioners, Mr. Monowitz, members of the staff. My name is Zoe Christine Tucker. I'm a resident of Moss Beach and currently represent the coast side on the Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space District Board of Directors. But today I'm speaking as a private citizen and also as a former planning commissioner. Every so often, a project comes along that as a planning commissioner, you appreciate not only because the applicants have been absolutely meticulous in their attention to the details of the many coastal zoning regulations and rules, and also have taken into great account the land in a way that is loving and planning for the future in a wonderful way. But more than that, the project makes San Mateo County a better place, actually makes this region a better place. This is one of those projects. The applicants have done an extraordinary job of thinking about what their needs are, honoring the land, respecting their partners and community neighbors, particularly the agricultural community. This property, this project sits right next to the second largest Mid-Penn open space preserve, La Honda Creek. We're very excited about the partnership opportunities there. Farm labor housing, I could go on and on. But what really, to me, elevates this project is the opportunity that it provides to cultivate environmental leaders and to instill those environmental values in kids who might never, ever have had the opportunity to experience these endangered coastal resources. That to me is priceless. So I encourage you to adopt the staff's recommendations and perhaps make a visit to Vita Verde if you have a chance. And there's nothing, I'm going to say one more thing. There's nothing quite so uplifting as seeing one of Vita Verde's vans parked at the beach. It's just incredibly moving. So thank you. That's all for me.
Thank you, Zoe. I will next call on Andrew Shapiro. Please accept this invitation, unmute your microphone and begin speaking.
Good morning to the commission, and I wanted to say thank you for considering this topic. I'm a Bay Area resident, and I've volunteered at and supported Vita Verde for over a decade now. And I've been so compelled by Vita Verde's mission and impact that I've introduced hundreds of friends and family members to Vita Verde as an organization over the course of the past 10 years. I'm very fortunate to be able to serve on Vita Verde's board and act as the treasurer. And based on this intimate involvement with Vita Verde, I can assure you that it's an extremely well-run organization, as I think you've gotten a sense of today from the presentation. Sean, Laura, the entire staff are incredibly conscientious and committed to the long-term health of the organization, its staff, and also the long-term health of the land. And as Sean pointed out, conservation is at the core of this organization. Vita Verde inherently stewards the land, but it's also helping ensure that the next generation becomes stewards of the land. Personally, I was able to attend a full 3-day program at Vita Verde a couple of years ago alongside students and their teacher chaperones. And because of this, I have seen the positive impact of this kind of exposure to the outdoors and Vida Verde's curriculum on these kids. It's a very powerful thing to see the look on the face of a 10-year-old who is seeing the Pacific Ocean for the first time, despite having grown up just a few miles away. I work as a designer, and I've spent the past year working at a mental health company based in San Francisco. And it's not a stretch to say that we're facing a crisis today, which is that children are suffering from mental health issues more than ever. And we have significant data that shows that exposure to nature can help alleviate many of these issues. So as you consider this, I hope you'll consider the potential positive impact of this project on the thousands of youth in and around San Mateo County who may not otherwise have access to the outdoors. I truly believe that Vida Verde will outlast all of us. And then this is a critical step in ensuring that many, many more generations will be able to appreciate the beauty of San Mateo County. And I hope you'll support the future of Vida Verde through approving these permits. Thank you.
Is that the end of your comment? I'm sorry. You were breaking up a little bit. Okay. I do not see any more hand raised, Chair.
Thank you. Seeing that no additional members of the public wish to speak, if there are no objections, public comment on this item is now closed. Now we will move on to commissioner comments and deliberation. And let's start with Commissioner Gupta.
Thank you, Chair. As we've been hearing, it's a great presentation and a great project. I think Zoe Christine Tucker put it very eloquently that we rarely come across such projects which are going to be good for our generations to come. And I'm in full support of it. And of course, our county is a good place for this kind of project. They can get a very good, all these kids can get a very good experience. So I'm in support, and thank you all for preparing this very complete report on this project.
Commissioner Henson.
When Zoe was on the commission and I had to follow her comments, I usually said, yeah, what she said. And here it is again. Yeah, what she said. And it's really hard to improve on that. So I will comment on the one thing she didn't say, and I will comment on the barn. Now, if you've never been on a farm and look at a barn, each one is unique. A dairy barn is not a hay storage barn, which is not a hop storage barn. They're all unique. And this barn is unique and designed for its intended purpose. And on top of it, it's beautiful. From top to end, everything in this is just beautiful. So thank you, and I'm in support.
Commissioner Ramirez.
Yeah, I just wanted to disclose that actually yesterday I called up Mr. Sears and I talked to Sean and Sandy because I wanted to get a better understanding, because this is one of those it's too good to be true, because I over the years, I've sent my kids over to camps to be exposed to nature. But now we don't have enough places where the kids who cannot afford to go to some of these camps, we just don't have many, if any. And so I really never heard of Vida Verde, and I wanted to understand more about what it was that they're actually running, how they're exposing the kids, So it was really good and really reassuring to know exactly what kind of a program they're running. And from my perspective, and I think there's a number of commissioners here that have done farming and understand that, you know, being exposed to nature is extremely important, I think, in people's lives. So I'm absolutely in favor and in support of this project. And I want to thank the presentation, Mrs. Chavez and Sean and Sandy for showing us that video. That was really nice. So thank you.
So me too. Zoe's comments capture my thoughts and feelings about this project. I'm enthusiastically in support. And yes, the barn looks very cool. So may we have a motion?
Yeah, I'll make the motion if I may. I will move that the Planning Commission adopt the mitigated negative declaration and approve the coastal development permit, plan agricultural district permit, and farm labor housing permit as per county file number PLN 2019-00429 by making the required findings and adopting the conditions of approval as detailed in attachment A.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Gupta,
Aye.
Commissioner Hanson,
Aye.
Commissioner Ramirez,
Aye.
Chair Ketchum.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Motion passes 4-0. Thank you.
Congratulations.
I love your program and wish you the very best. So we'll move on now to the director's portion of the meeting.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thanks to all the speakers today. Nice to conclude the meeting with such a great project. And so let's see, I think we've covered all the correspondence today that we received with one exception. You did receive a letter regarding development occurring in North Fair Oaks. A resident was concerned about the fact that one developer had so many projects going on at one time surrounding, you know, an existing residence that she felt like the impacts were being unduly burdensome on the neighborhood, which I can certainly understand the concern, but as the commission probably knows, we don't have any regulations in place that limit who can build when. Nevertheless, I wanted to make sure that the sites were being maintained as they should under our building code. And so our building official did follow up with the developer's head of construction and did make a site visit, and they're making a point to make sure that all the construction materials and work is being maintained in a tidy way that has as minimum impact on the neighbors. So that concludes the correspondence portion of my report. With regard to the, go ahead.
Yeah, I always appreciate that you forward these letters, and to the public who's still listening out there, I take the time in reading each and every one of them, even though there's no action that may be required of them, but I do note them and I do appreciate them. And I know, as in the last project, there were 2 handwritten notes that we even got. And I thought that was, you know, the emails and stuff we get, they're very readable, and I enjoy that. Getting handwritten notes is extremely rare. In 20 years of getting things, this is only the 2nd or 3rd time I've ever had handwritten notes. And I have forgotten the impact a handwritten note can give to you when you're reading it, because you can, the way that it is structured and everything else, I just appreciate the letters that we do get. And I want to thank the people who actually took the time to handwrite. Just my comment on comments on correspondence.
I had a question about the, I don't know if this came to the full commission. There was an email about Ascension Heights removing 5 more mature oaks at the erosion repair site. Do you know what the resolution of that issue was and how that, who's involved?
I do not. So thank you for reminding me of that. I will look into it and report back to the commission at the next meeting.
I think it was to Kelsey Lang.
Okay.
And so, okay, thank you.
Okay. Just writing myself a note so I don't remember. Don't forget. Let's see. So with regard to next meeting, no study session proposed, but we will have two items. One's a general plan conformity report for Mid-Peninsula Open Space proposed acquisition of a portion of the Johnston Ranch near Half Moon Bay. And they'll be purchasing that from Post. And then the other item are permits for a new single-family dwelling on Valmar Street in Moss Beach on the coast side. So other than that, I'll keep the director's report real short. I just want to update you guys on the potential for in-person meetings. This whole uptick in the Delta variant has thrown a little bit of a wrench in the works with the idea that we'd be back together in the fall. So we're looking at November as potentially the soonest possible date. So we'll see what the future has in store for us in the next couple months in that regard. And then with regard to the action that you took accepting the Coastal Commission modifications to the regulations for accessory dwelling units on the coast, that will be going to the Board of Supervisors on September 14th. Unless there's any questions, that concludes my report.
Are there any questions?
Nope.
Well, seeing no further business, the meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. See you next time.
Good to see you.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.